we are hanging out with Tia Bennett with Trailstone Insurance Group. Yes. Trailstone Insurance Group. Mm-hmm. It is awesome to be here.
Thanks for having me. I've been looking forward to this for a really long time, and I just think you guys are a great duo, so I appreciate it.
And we're in the new podcast room, so that's super fun.
This is really swanky and fancy, so welcome.
This is the setup right here.
I love it.
I want to just post up and hang out here.
I'm excited to film more.
Yeah.
Stay tuned.
Well, maybe we can start there because, you know, we have a podcast. Obviously, we're here doing an episode of the Head at Home podcast, which we've been doing for about 4 years. And y'all run a podcast as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay, so you were recently a guest last week, which I have not gotten out yet, but it's the Elite Real Estate Leaders podcast. We did recently rebrand that. So it used to be Colorado Real Estate Leaders, and now we're offering it to all 6 states that we're licensed in. So we'll start getting some people from other states on there. Right now it's just Colorado, and that's what we focused on, and we're just really excited to expand it. So that's the name change, why we went there. So you can see both online, but it is a platform for real estate professionals. As an insurance company, you guys send us leads, lenders, realtors, title, everyone sends us leads, but we don't have anything to really give back, because when people come to us, they're like in the middle of their transaction, or they have previously done a transaction and they have their person. So we thought that this platform was a great way to have these real estate professionals come on and really talk about what is going to make their business successful, and that looks different for everyone. So we've had all walks of life, entrepreneurs, people who are recruiting other agents to be on their team, lenders who are recruiting other loan officers to be on their team, and people who are just kind of hitting the ground running and really needing clients to come listen to their podcast and really make that their platform. So it truly is all encompassing, but the main focus, honestly, is just to create authority for them. Our host, we have a hired host, Mike. He's awesome.
He's
You've
great.
heard him on
yeah,
there.
He was great.
Yeah.
I know, I'm just the co-host.
Yeah, no,
So.
It's well ran.
Thank you.
I think you guys do a great job, and we've listened to a few episodes, and we're on it.
I know. I appreciate about our podcast, and I'm wondering how you feel about that. I just love learning in general from people, and I think interviewing people is such a unique way of learning a lot of information very quickly.
Yes.
I just feel like when you listen to people's stories, or you listen to how they got in the business, or what they're doing, you can just pull out so many pieces from personal life and what people have experienced. Is that what you've kind of taken away?
Strategically, that is the first question we ask everybody. We want to know, how did you get in the industry? What's your story? And you can really tell the difference between who you're talking to, if it's a new agent or if it's someone very entrepreneurial who has created a huge business. How they got in the industry is such an interesting story for each person and where they're at in their career. So we love that first question, and I have learned so much from everyone who's come on there. So it's actually just been really beneficial for me in growing what I'm growing here, in just asking that one simple question: how did you get into the industry?
Isn't it funny though?
Yeah.
Real estate, lending, insurance, I feel like those are industries that you don't typically go to college for and then get right out and get into that industry. So it is a crazy story. We asked the same question on our podcast too. And people just kind of fall into it.
They do.
Yeah.
I did interview, with the exception of yesterday, I interviewed one person who had went to college for
You're like, really?
real estate, which I didn't think was a thing. But there's been one person out of these, I want to say we're coming up on 150 or so episodes.
Wow.
One person.
That's so crazy.
Well, I think it's really cool, what you do with your podcast, because content creation is huge as well. Social media, we knew that was right when Facebook and Instagram came out. We were like, okay, we got to get on.
I wanted you so badly to say MySpace.
Oh man, we did have a MySpace reference earlier, but
the rapping days.
Let's throw some beats on here, right?
Please.
It's midday on a Thursday.
It's gonna happen eventually. Okay, it will happen.
I want to be there for that.
I think it's awesome though what you do. I also think it's awesome that you are involved in these DISC assessments. Tell us a little bit about that. And you do trainings for those as well, or you're certified? Give us some background.
I'm a certified DISC practitioner. It's
You sound
very
so fancy.
official.
Practitioner.
Very official title.
Very fancy.
I started putting it, it's almost like MD at the end of your name.
Yes, love it.
DP, DISC practitioner. It was actually a task, and all the leadership in our company ended up getting certified in this because it started off as something that we just wanted to do for our company and our agents that work for us so that we could be a stronger team internally. Yeah. Well, at that point, I wanted to try to get it CE certified with Dora, which they booted it. I'm still trying, but we'll get there because I do predominantly do this with real estate agents. It's almost more beneficial for lenders, but you guys as individuals, it's a little bit different. It's easier to be in front of a group and, operationally, I think it's so important in lending, but groups of agents are always working together, buy side, list side. So it becomes really powerful when you start understanding how to work with not only your peers, but your clients. And not always, but when I do these groups, see a lot of high D, high I in the sales atmosphere. Yeah. And I think if you know anything about DISC, you know that DI is a little bit more of an intense DISC profile. So starting with D, I, S, and C, D being dominance. Watch me just forget this right now. I being influence, S being steadiness, C being conscientious. So DI is the faster paced profile, SC is the slower pace. So you see a lot of people in operations or something very analytical, like an engineer, being S's or C's. Mostly C for the data analytic stuff, and then DI being sales, entrepreneurial people. Yeah. So with that, I try to show them from a sales standpoint how to be a little bit more adaptable and not just, especially if you're D, not just trying to dominate your transaction.
Right.
Like you've already won, you're doing the transaction, so you don't need that win. You don't need to dominate everyone. Let's adapt. Let's become a little bit more slow it down because everyone's a unique blend of all four at the end of the day. We talk about I'm a high this, I'm a high that, but you're a blend of all four. And we do focus on what the high profiles are so we can pick those out of other people and try to help understand how they want to be sold better to. So if I see that you're, clearly a high C, I'm going to sell to you like a high C, or I'm going to adapt to you like a high C, but I know that deep down you've got a lot more layers to you, and it's all about understanding that that's what it is. There's layers, but we're going to focus on the high points just to try to get through and make this a smooth transaction.
I think that one thing that is important that people sometimes forget is whether it's business or it's really in any aspect of life, is the importance of like human connection. And you have to really understand like who that human is in front of you and how you can connect with them on their level using the skills that you have. And like Mr. High C over here is like, we're very detailed. And, I think like understanding that him and I work very differently, but like you have to understand yourself so that you can understand the people in front of you and really adapt, because like conflict is going to come up if you're not understanding those different pieces or those different aspects of the humans in front of you.
Exactly. And a big piece of it is telling everybody that not one profile is better than the other. Limitations come with every single profile.
But if you had to pick one, like what?
Being that I am DI myself, I tend to no. And then also understanding there's tensions when you're a high anything, especially if you're really high. You're going to have tensions with another really high same profile. And that can just be so difficult to navigate, especially in real estate, which is why I'm trying to get this CE certified. But they're all mostly DIs out there working together. You can imagine, we've seen it, all of the just tensions that come along with it, and just helping them work better together, I think is so valuable. And we may all know these things because we have a level of emotional intelligence, which, by the way, DISC does not measure emotional intelligence. There is a test, there's motivators, there's emotional intelligence that you can take that, gauges that for you, but DISC itself isn't going to test that. So if you've got a level of emotional intelligence to you, then you're not just going to fly off the handle and act in such a way, but everyone's got these different levels to them. Everyone has a good or a bad day, and you can choose when you want to be adaptable with somebody. So with that being said, I think that the main thing to remember is, I love this part of DISC where the golden rule, we all know the golden rule, right? It's treat others the way you want to be treated. Yeah. In DISC, it's the platinum rule. Treat others the way they want to be treated.
Yes.
So when you start thinking of it in that sense, it makes perfect sense that a C would want to be treated a lot differently than an I, because they are a little bit more of a recluse and they want to stay guarded, as opposed to, that was a little inside joke there.
Jen's a recluse. So just leave it at that.
Yeah, can you tell?
As opposed to a high I wants to be treated a lot differently than a C would. So when you look at it from that perspective, I think it gives you a lot more just adaptability in life and gives you a little bit more foresight, if you will.
Yeah, and awareness.
Yeah.
I remember the first time I took a DISC test, we did it company-wide, and running a team, for me, I had teammates that I found out their personality was maybe different than what I thought it was, you know? And like you said, treat other people the way that you want to be treated. You just kind of assume everybody sees the situation the same way that you see it.
Exactly.
And that's definitely not the case.
No.
But that assessment will bring awareness to that.
It's like a huge cornerstone of leadership. Like you have, if you are leading and managing in a good way, like you have to really understand the people that you're leading and managing, or it's not going to go well.
But when do you learn that? Like, where do you learn that? You don't, unless you take an assessment like that. I think
it starts a lot with personal development and really understanding who you are, because until you understand who you are, you really don't understand who other people are. And I think that's, I could talk all day about that, but I think it really starts with like understanding your strengths and weaknesses so that you can in turn understand how you can connect with other people.
That's really the building blocks of DISC. Honestly, it's let's help you understand yourself, and then we can help you understand others, because this DISC is all encompassing. It's personal, it's in work, it's under stress, it's family life. So you can really utilize it in all aspects.
You guys should start like doing IQ tests for people. And
here we go.
I just want to say that Andrew and I did this. So he's very competitive, which I'm sure you can tell. And so he gets really annoyed when I win things against him. So like there was like a little couple week span where like I beat him at mini golf and like matching, like I don't know, he was throwing out all these games.
Random.
So finally he was like, well, let's take an IQ test. And I was like,
4.
Cool. And I beat him. I beat him.
Barely. It was really close.
Win's a win.
And it was at the end of the day when we took it. I want a rematch.
But it's important because behind every good man is a good woman. So you gotta give her that.
I'm glad. Yeah. Glad that you're smarter than me, babe.
Oh man. Well, okay, Tia, I do want to back up and just talk about like how did you get into the insurance industry?
Talking about falling into things, right? Because I started in lending. I was in lending for 12 years, which I wouldn't say I necessarily fell into lending either. My family has been in lending my whole life. I think my first words were like GFE and HUD and 1003.
DTI.
Yeah,
knew all the acronyms right off the bat.
Immediately, it was funny. I would make fun of my mom on the phone. I'd be like, "You're just over here talking about your GFEs and your 1003s, and you think you're so cool."
Oh wow!
Just as a snotty high schooler.
That's amazing.
So lending runs deep, and I actually, before I got into insurance, owned a contract processing company. And that was during COVID, and we kind of all know how difficult those times were in general. But if I'm being honest with myself, I was already a little stressed out burnt out being in lending for as long as I already was. So looking at my disc profile, knowing I'm DI and I'm doing some heavy SC work in processing, and I was managing a team of people, but at the same time, that part made me happy. But I was still very much so involved in the trenches and the work, and you know how much detail that requires. So I was just burnt out. I had just had 2 kids, and they were very close together. They're 14 months apart. So, and of course we're in lockdown. So I'm running this business.
Like, I'm getting anxiety. You just like, I'm getting like flashbacks to that time when I was working and like had the kids sitting at, just
nightmare. So with that being said, I became extremely burnt out. And I had just kind of been putting some feelers out there, trying to see what else is out there. I think we all go through those times where you're just like, the grass might be greener somewhere else. So I was going through that. And then I found Trailstone. They were hiring a marketing person, which I went to school for accounting. So that did not align with me, but I was like, you know what? Let's just see what's going on here. And honestly, it was the people that brought me here. I don't know that if I would have gone to a generic captive agent, anything like that, that I would have really been impressed or wanted to join insurance. But coming here, it was like, this is something I could do. This is something that I can live on a day-to-day basis and feel way less stressed out. So I'm coming up on a year in November. So it's been a short period of time, but I feel like from a self-worth, just happiness standpoint, this just aligns so much more. And I think that anybody who knows me on a personal level has been able to tell night and day difference in just my levels, day-to-day levels. Yeah.
Well, I think what you said, it's so important to know yourself, because and I'm the same way. So like, if I had to do detailed work for 8 hours a day, I mean, I would be in sheer misery.
Right.
And so I think like understanding who you are is really important when you're considering like what type of career you want or what type of work that you have. What's something that you love the most about your current role?
So it's funny because my role last year when I started is completely different from my role now, where not that I didn't immediately start helping out with the podcast. I wasn't, you'll listen to episodes back then and I didn't talk at all. It was just listening, learning, figuring out. And this company is so tech savvy. Like, they have the highest tech and things where I'm a millennial. I know tech. I grew up for the most part on computers for most of my childhood, at least. So I do know a lot about tech, but coming here, it was like 2 months of rigorous training and figuring out. I thought I knew it, but I don't. And it's automations. So not only am I growing and learning, which really just is something that I value. I don't ever want to be in a place where I'm not learning and growing. So this has been great for that. But it's been something that we've been able to mold into what we need this position to be. So it's, marketing / public relations / whatever, whatever goes.
Right.
And it's constantly changing. So I love knowing that it's not going to be the same thing every single day, Groundhog Day, waking up, because that is not something that my personality can handle.
Sounds amazing.
Thanks.
What's the biggest challenge that you're facing in your business right now, and how are you tackling it?
So I think in real estate and lending, there is a lot of challenge with inflation and just kind of the way that of the world, what's going on. And people look at insurance like, you're not having those issues. Everyone needs insurance, but there is a level of struggle in insurance. And I'm a licensed agent and everything. I don't necessarily write insurance, but I do know enough to be dangerous at this point. I'd like to think, at least. So the company in general, and this is all stuff that affects me too, even though I'm not an agent, but we're seeing that people are on a daily basis. It'll be yesterday we could insure this person, but today they're uninsurable, or this property has become uninsurable. And I get calls all the time from agents saying, my client just got dropped from Travelers. This happened yesterday. She's like, he just got dropped from Travelers. He's an evergreen, high flyer. They don't want it anymore. So we are dealing with that and trying to figure it out. But there's a level to it, right? Where we have to keep a good relationship with our carriers and give them the business they want. But at the same time, you know, we want to help everyone. But it's just all something that we're juggling on the back end, and we have really refocused the business into one of our core values is heart of a teacher. So we really want to educate now, and that's why we need people like you guys and a platform, because this stuff isn't making the news by any means.
No.
I've had people in my disc classes say, why are people not talking about this? I'm like, well, we are, but it just doesn't seem like something that is big headlines at this point, but it's really important stuff that people need to know. So I love telling real estate agents, lenders, hey, help us spread this news to your clients, because you know, the last thing we want is our lenders factoring in a really tight DTI, like 100, 150 a month, because that's
which
just
we
not
used
gonna
to do.
Yeah, we did easy, but now the carriers are just getting so smart and savvy where if you jack up that deductible, they're like, yeah, you're stuck with that deductible for 12 months. We're not just going to close on your loan and then go switch it, because they have figured that out, that we're all doing this.
Yeah.
So it's just becoming more and more serious, especially if you want to protect your client's asset, which we know you do. And we know that everyone doesn't know better at this point, but we want to spread the word that, hey, come to us, let us be the professional, let us show you and teach you why we're doing the things we're doing and why it's so important that you factor in these higher numbers right now. I know rates are high, home prices are high.
Taxes just went up.
January is going to be a hard month on the escrow accounts.
Yeah, it is.
So it's
Surprise.
hitting it. No, and
but the education is important. It's super relevant.
Yeah.
What should we estimate? I know that's like such a coin toss question.
We hate
what,
answering
250,
that.
300?
You should ask him what the interest rate is of the day after you answer this.
I know you hate quoting a rate.
I hear you. I do.
So it's the same type of thing, but I would honestly say, without giving any numbers, without saying something that might get me into trouble later,
just say not
easily
100.
double what
we
you're
were doing
currently
before.
doing on any transaction. If you've got, I know some people who use a percentage where somebody said, I'm using 0.33, and I was like, maybe even triple that. No.
Yeah. Well,
double it at least.
Right. Okay. And from a lending standpoint too, it's important just to educate the client that we don't know what that quote will be until they actually get the quote.
Exactly.
You know?
There's so many things that go into it, not only the property and the past claims on the property, but the client's
so much
profile and their credit rating and who they are, and if they're married, if they've got kids, so many things go into it. So it's not a one size fits all by any means. It's not something we just pull up a rate sheet and say, here's your rate. It's your very specific situation.
Well, I think that's fantastic that you are focused on educating lenders and real estate agents and clients, but hopefully that will cause a ripple effect, educating realtors and lenders to educate their clients to make sure that they understand the ins and outs of that.
Okay, I want to shift gears a little bit, because time management is a topic that's near and dear to my heart. And I was thinking about this, and one thing that you do really, really well around automating and delegating. What is that Rory Vaden book? What is that? Do you know?
Take the stair. Procrastinate on purpose. I think
Procrastinate
is what you're
on purpose.
talking about.
But he basically talks about, like, when you get a task, like, you want to figure out, can you automate it? Can you delegate it? Can you delete it? Or, like, do you just have to do it? And I think one of the things that you do really well is automation and delegation. And you all use a lot of virtual assistants to do some of that work that maybe you don't necessarily need to personally do. So talk about how you've used them and just, like, the impact on your business and how that can potentially help lenders or real estate agents.
Yeah, and this is something that I feel like is a hot topic in real estate right now anyways, so I love talking about it. We have a really great automation stack here, but it couldn't be done without our VAs. So we've got, I think, 13 on staff now, and there's a VA that I work with personally just on my side with the content marketing and just doing the videos and the podcasting. So there's no end to the VA that you could hire. There is a level of difficulty in finding the right fit. So I will say that you do have to make sure that you have the time to figure that out, because it's trial and error. So our VAs do anything from quoting to, back end stuff and helping us with the automation and creating the automation itself. So they're very tech savvy, or they could be very creative and help with video editing. So there's really no end to what they do for our agency. And I would say that absolutely, if you're an agent, if you're a lender and you're not using VAs to help you out, because you can't do it all.
No.
I think you've probably figured that out at this point, is that there's just no time in the day to do everything. And we have to be honest with ourselves with what we're good at and what we're not good at. Where are your limitations? And talk about time management, right? And this plays into DISC too. If you're becoming burnt out with, you just said you can't do a lot of detail-oriented stuff that Andrew could do, which is nice that he has that. But if you were alone, I would have a VA go into helping you with all the detailed stuff and really getting in there, because I think that there's a statistic, like if you're not spending 20% on maybe your gifts and your VAs helping you with like social media strategy and everything, then you're probably doing it wrong. So you need about 20% of your income to really put into that and help you become more successful. It's such an investment into your business. And if you don't know anything about automations, it's going to take a long time to figure it out. You need somebody to really build that out for you. And there is a level of knowledge that comes with it that you do need to know up front. But I wouldn't be where I am right now without that, because I know nothing about the inner workings of automations and what goes on behind the scenes. So we're really thankful to have them. They're amazing. And it's, very affordable. They're very thankful to be with us. And it's just such a good relationship to have at this point.
I love that.
Yeah,
I do too. And I think a lot of real estate agents and lenders, and probably business owners in general, like they built their business because they had control over it, right? And I think letting go of that control and delegating is tough for people. But I mean, it sounds like you said there's no limit to what you could ask them to do. And you might be surprised at some of the things they can pull off.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially if you're at the point in your career where maybe you are feeling a little bit capped.
Yeah.
And I'm working with as many clients as I could possibly handle, but I do want to increase my income. I feel like that's the point that you need to be at, to step back and say, okay, now it's time to invest in someone who's going to up my social media game, up my video contenting game, anything like that. I think that when you get to a stuck point, that's when you need to start looking outward and start thinking about, what am I doing for my business, and how can I invest in that, and who can I really hire to help me do that. And I think that, like I said, a VA is absolutely necessary for everyone to have.
Yeah. And unless you don't want to scale, like if you want to scale, like you absolutely have to start like using resources.
But even then, unless you're a single person and you have no kids, no wife or husband,
you just want to work,
and all you have time to do is work and sleep and eat, then great, you could probably do it all. But any other person out there who has a life and has people relying on them for any sort of thing, it's near impossible to do it on your own.
Yeah. Tia, what drives you?
I love this question, and I will say that going through the motions of life, I never really understood that I needed a why. So I, just in the last few years, since I had children, honestly, children are a great why. They shouldn't be your only why. I think you need backup whys in life, because when you're having a hard day with that one why,
get that why.
What else do you have to live for if your kids are just terrorizing you and you don't want to go to work? Don't want to go to work that day. You need a backup why. So, I started really getting intentional with it in the last few years and really figuring out what's going to get me out of bed today, because I just didn't have that. I was like, I'm waking up, I'm doing things, but I have no reason to do them. So my why became happiness. And I know that's a broad why, but you have to put in so much work to be happy, to be completely honest. You're scrolling social media every day, and it becomes very apparent that you're looking at people's highlight reels.
Right.
And that everyone appears happy, but when you're getting deep with people and you're just talking day to day, you realize that happiness is not something that just happens for everybody. So for me, that was all encompassing, where I needed to really be hitting all of my marks with, getting enough sleep, eating right, getting exercise, taking some deep breaths, and doing some meditation in order to hit that happiness mark. So happiness has definitely multiple layers for me that a lot of people, I think, exercise and eating healthy, a lot of people have those whys, but I've just kind of categorized it all into happiness because I just feel like it's not worth going through life without being happy.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And I think you realizing that there's a lot of components to that. Like you have to focus on a lot of different stuff for that to make you feel fulfilled and happy and joyful and all of those pieces.
And not every day is going to bring you happiness.
Not.
So it's become kind of a competitive thing where it's like, what can I do to make me feel the best today? Right. And hey, I felt really good yesterday. How can I duplicate that today? So it's just become almost like chasing a feeling.
Yeah. I love that.
I think on your podcast, excuse me.
You got a frog in your throat?
You asked, I think one of the questions was define success. And I said being successful is being proud of yourself. And it's similar to happiness. I think like that.
You did say that.
To me, it's like being happy or being successful is being proud of yourself.
Yeah.
What are you most proud of in your life?
Good question. We're getting deep here.
I know I might start crying. And I'm not wearing waterproof mascara, so that was problem number one.
At least you got the mascara on. Right?
True, that's fair. No one needs to see that.
So yeah, this one hits home for sure. I'm definitely most proud of myself for being a working single mom. And again, like I said, I didn't find my why for a few years until I had kids. So I was just going through the motions. And becoming a single mom was the hardest thing that I ever chose to do, because that comes with a stigma, of course, but it also is a choice that everyone knows you made. So just being that I was able to come out of it in a positive way instead of letting it bring me down completely and just giving up and or going back to a situation that I just knew wasn't the level of happiness I was seeking, was a really hard choice to make. And I think a lot of people have to make those choices, and some people are dealt cards that are harder than others. So while my struggles may not seem as great, it was, that internal feeling and just the guilt of knowing that you made that choice was so difficult. So I'm proud to have come out of it in a way that I was able to create a positive experience and, jump into a new industry. I did all these things at the exact same time, which was so
during a pandemic.
Yeah, during a pandemic. And I think a lot of people went through a lot of this, to be completely honest.
But they some reacted negatively,
right.
Some fought back.
Right.
It shows that you have, I guess, like a fighter spirit too.
I feel like we talk about this a lot, like COVID, that period of time, I feel like really put like a magnifying glass on like on your life, one, and then two, people coming out of it, like people are really who they are now. So like if you were a certain way before COVID, like it's been interesting just like observing people, and it's like, oh, you really like went all in on this. And I think that people, like you said, like really went one way or
Double
the
down.
other.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the end of the day, I feel like I'm a person who loves to take responsibility for my actions. So I could have seen myself going one way or the other, because I feel like I could have just doubled down on, you did this to yourself, and, getting really negative with it. So honestly, it's hard to get out of a negative mindset once you're there. So I'm definitely proud of where I'm at with the positivity aspect of my life.
One thing that I was thinking about as you were saying that is when I think about doing hard things in my life, or like, because you put yourself in a really uncomfortable position that was going to bring you like a lot of short-term pain. Like you chose that pain. And I think one thing I'm thinking of, because we have 2 kids, obviously we've talked about that, is I'm always thinking, what is the example that I want to set for my kids? Like, how can I tell them to do the hard stuff if I'm not willing to like jump in and do that hard thing? And I think for you, you know, while your kids may not fully understand it now,
Right.
like it's going to be a really good lesson for them to understand, like, hey, mom did this, like when, you know, the easiest thing was probably not that. And I think that's amazing.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
And they're watching, and
Always.
they learn from what you do and not what you
Watching.
say.
Always.
The things they pick up.
I'll pop off with some words, and I'm like, "Where'd you hear that?"
I know.
I heard it from you, Mom.
Me. Yeah, you. No, but I mean, it is important, and I don't think we talk about that with kids, but just like working in schools for, you know, most of my life, it's like you can say everything you want to a little kid or a high school, like a kid, but it's actually more what you're modeling for them that
Right.
they're going to pick up. And so
Action speaks so much louder.
absolutely.
They
And
really
so
do.
just, you know, them watching how you tackle hard times or how you tackle situations that make you uncomfortable. I mean, that's how they're going to learn.
Right.
So I think that's super cool.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Just kidding. I'm just
Start
kidding.
bawling. Who's your biggest mentor?
I have many, honestly. I love female mentors, and I also love, you know, big fan of Tony Robbins. I'm per everyone.
Yeah.
I do
Some of
love all the self-help type things, but truly, day in and day out, the person who's been there for me, as cliche as it is, my mom, never judged me. I have not done things traditionally ever in my life, and she has never batted an eye at an action I've made. And I also have a really big family support system. I have cousins my age who are, you know, successful and have different levels of success that I can go to bounce ideas off of, and not even in my same industry, which is nice because you get the full just judgment that you need sometimes from people. So I'm lucky to have people who are willing to give me the hard truths and to listen to me when I need to be listened to. And I'm a big advocate of therapy and self-help in general, but at the same time, I mean, who can afford a day in and day out therapist? So to have people that you could just bounce things off of and to look at you when you've done something that you know is not a good thing, and for them to just tell you it's okay, I accept you and I still love you, is the most powerful thing I've had in my life. And not to say that my family is perfect by any means. Everyone makes mistakes, but just to feel seen and heard, I feel is a mentor to me, and someone who at the same time pushes you to grow.
That's
So
awesome.
if you were going to write a book tomorrow, what would it be about?
The same thing, you know, I already titled it. I thought about this.
Oh, you've got one going.
I've got one going.
Okay.
It's still being written. The pages are there. The writing just isn't.
The
But
title is there.
We're
the
getting
pages
there.
are
You know, it's Juggling Life's Puzzle, a single mom's journey of triumph and love.
I love that.
Okay.
Yes. So,
That's amazing.
you know, I just feel like, again, I have not done things traditionally at all. And I have stories, just as we all do. I have some stories. And where I've gotten today is not the path that you think I would have taken to get here. And I feel like my message to people and to women, especially women, single moms, and people who really just didn't have a good start in life, I really feel for and resonate with, just because, you know, I hate that you can't just choose what you're born into.
Yeah.
It's so hard. Some people just have it better than others. So I really sympathize with people who didn't have the best start and then made it from nothing to something. So I feel like looking at my story, my life, I just want people to know, you know, success isn't measured by the choices that you made. It's measured by your happiness in the end and where you've come versus where you started. So for me, I don't have to be wildly rich in money. It's
Right.
the experiences that I've made that have made me successful, and the paths that I've taken you wouldn't think would have led me to success or happiness, but they have. So that would be something that I would definitely show people, that you can really come from nothing to something.
You need to write that book.
You
Yeah.
do. You need to write that book. And I do think there's just such value in having a hard road. And like, you know, one thing we talk about is like, how can we make stuff harder on our kids so that they learn important lessons? Because I'm like, oh my God, like you need a harder life right now.
Yeah.
But I love that you said that. And I think that those stories or those lessons that you've learned along a road that maybe looks a little bit differently for people would be incredibly valuable for
Right.
anyone.
And sometimes we even put ourselves there, right? It's you could be extremely blessed and still put yourself down a hard road just because of your own stubbornness. So it's really anyone of all walks of life, but I really do value relationships with single moms and women who have had to struggle and get to where they need to be, because taking care of kids as a couple is wild.
Right. I mean,
By yourself.
I don't.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, again, sometimes I'll throw a stick in front of my kid just to give him a little
Love it.
lesson in
I
grit.
love it. I love
There
it.
you go.
I
Make
love
them
it.
resilient.
Just kidding.
Where can people find you?
Absolutely. You can find me on all social platforms. I'm at Miss Tia Lee on Instagram, which is a bigger platform. Find us at Elite Real Estate Leaders Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, anything Elite Real Estate Leaders, you can find me, or just Tia Bennett. And then if you want to visit our website, trailstoneinsurance.com, get a quote. I have an amazing team of people who only focus on real estate transactions. They really understand the mortgage process. And we have 40 A-rated insurance carriers. So we can help anybody, insurable, non-insurable. If you've had an increase in insurance, which you likely have, we would love to help you out.
Reach out to Tia. Check out the podcast. Like, subscribe to the Head at Home podcast as well. And anything else, babe?
Oh, thanks for hanging with us.
Thanks for having
This
me.
was so
Appreciate it.
fun.
Getting deep. Love
I
it.
know.
This was awesome.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.
Thanks for listening. See you next time.